Hi everyone, just a quick content warning. The movie we're reviewing in this episode is a comedy, but it hasn't aged very well. The instigating event behind the plot is an attempted sexual assault, so if you're not interested in listening to that, feel free to skip this one. Welcome to Screens of the Stone Age, the podcast where scientists review movies about prehistoric people. My name is Josh Lindahl. I'm a PhD student studying Neanderthal teeth, and I'm here with...
I'm Kim Plomp. I am a bioarchaeologist who studies human evolution and health of disease.
And I'm Ross Barnett. I study paleogenetics and Pleistocene life.
And today we're reviewing the movie Caveman from 1981, starring Ringo Starr. This is a great movie. Who wants to summarize this one?
I can try. I think Kim's done the last couple of ones.
It's one of those movies where a lot happens, but also nothing happens again, right?
Yeah. It's very much the standard, weird cave person gets banished from their tribe, goes off, has an adventure, and comes back, which we've seen so many times. But this time it's got a beetle in it. Yeah, it's a really weird film, I think. It's from 1981, but it feels like it should be a lot older.
Yeah, in the 70s. I thought it was 73 or something.
Yeah. But, I mean, basically, the story is it's set 1 zillion years BC in the 9th of October in a kind of cartoon 1 million years BC style environment where they've got cave people and stop-motion dinosaurs living at the same time. And you've got one tribe who are kind of hunched over, primitive, not very verbal, hunter-gatherer type people, one of whom is Ringo Starr, another of whom is Dennis Quaid, another of whom is Barbara Bach, and they're kind of one of those stereotypical might is right kind of cave groups where the biggest, strongest, grumpiest is the leader. And it basically follows the adventures of the caveman, who is Ringo Starr, who is fairly inept as a cave person in this society. He's not the strongest, he's not the biggest, but he starts off fairly kind of pathetic. He has a major crush on the Barbara Bach character, but can't do anything about it because she is the partner of the chief of the tribe. The story starts with him kind of trying to get close to the Barbara Bach character. He discovers a plant which seems to have kind of sleeping qualities and essentially tries to drug her to take advantage of her, but gets caught doing that by the chief of the tribe and banished, and he disappears off with
as he should.
As he should, yeah, absolutely. You know, he's trying to be he's the kind of hero you're supposed to be rooting for, and one of his first acts is try and roofie his girlfriend, which is not great. So he disappears. He's banished. He goes off with the Dennis Quaid character. They bump into Shelley Long, who you might know from Cheers, and her father, possibly, who's a kind of blind man. And they have kind of various hilarious adventures. They kind of, one of the only sort of bits that I almost laughed at was them progressing in evolution by the Ringo Starr and Dennis Quaid characters hugging together, and that straightens out their backs to kind of...
The discovery of chiropractic.
Yeah, that's it. That turns them into upright people, which was quite amusing-ish. And so they kind of wander around aimlessly. Ringo Starr's big plan is to try and get back with the Barbara Bach character. They get chased by dinosaurs. They discover how to use fire. They make friends with other tribe members from different tribes. What else do they do? They steal a giant egg from a pteranodon. They get into kind of fights with the other tribes, all in the kind of aim of trying to win back the Barbara Bach character.
They get the T-Rex high too.
Yes, that's right. The same drug plant which Ringo Starr tries to use to roofie his love interest. They also feed to the T-Rex character, and one of the only kind of good things in this film, I thought, was the stop motion animation, which was really kind of characterful, just like in the 1 million years BC film. They were kind of really well done. They reminded me of, I mean, this is a reference that will not mean anything to to most viewers or listeners, but they reminded me of the Chewits monsters. So in the kind of 80s and 90s in the UK, there's a brand of sweets called Chewits, which are like, I guess, Starburst style kind of sweets, like chewy fruit flavored sweets. And they were advertised by a kind of stop motion Godzilla kind of monster, which was kind of googly eyed and humorous and sympathetic. And that's the kind of flavor that I got from the stop motion animation in this film as well. And basically, the film kind of, after all these kind of wacky adventures, they kind of raid their old cave with all the new kind of humans that they made friends with, the Ringo Starr and Dennis Quaid characters. They kind of persuade the Barbara Bach character to leave with them. The Shelley Long character has somehow kind of got a crush on the Ringo Starr character and is a bit put out by the reappearance of the Barbara Bach character and Ringo Starr's obvious infatuation with her. They are chased by Yeti. They kind of randomly end up in an Ice Age region, which doesn't really make a lot of sense.
I think this was my favorite part.
Was it?
The Yeti.
The Yeti was quite cool and was just trying to make friends with them.
I know. You remind me of Susan.
So it kind of ends up with them launching an all-out war on the original tribe with the big that Ringo got evicted from for his kind of sexual misdemeanors, and they have a big fight where Ringo Starr rides one of the stop-motion dinosaurs into battle. They kind of defeat the kind of strong, brutish cave people, and once Ringo Starr has beaten the kind of old leader, this causes the Barbara Bach character to fall madly in love with him. And they kind of set up a kind of switch and bait at the end where it looks like Barbara Bach and Ringo Starr are going to live happily ever after. And poor Shelley Long, who's actually been by Ringo Starr's side for most of the movie, is really put out. But then she gets dropped into a giant pile of dung, and Ringo Starr realizes that actually she's a horrible gold digger, and he ends up with the Shelley Long character, and they live happily ever after. I mean, it's one of those very kind of, I mean, there's almost no plot. It's just a kind of series of sketches linked together by the characters that they have. And it's like so many other films that we've reviewed. It's just a banishment and return, essentially. It's like there's only one cave person plot that's available.
Except for Atuk, Ringo was such an ass, and he should have been banished. Like, trying to, rape the Lana when he drugged her, and the brutish guys never actually did anything wrong except for just trying to stop Ringo Starr from trying to rape and kidnap Lana.
Absolutely,
because they tried to kidnap her. Like they didn't convince her to go with them. First, they tried to kidnap her, and then when something happened, like when the tribe went to beat up the other tribe, something happened, and she thought Tunga was dead. She thought her man was dead. So she just kind of had to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of Revenge of the Nerds, that idea where they're supposed to be the underdogs and you're supposed to feel bad for them because the big brutish guy gets the beautiful woman and has all the power and control, but it's actually the nerds that are the horrible evil ones.
Yeah, for sure. Like Ringo Starr is not. If it wasn't Ringo Starr, I mean, there's almost nothing to redeem him. He's kind of stupid and conniving and just not a very nice character. Whereas, like I say, the leader, whose name I can't remember, the big kind of brutish cave leader, Tunda, he's seems fairly reasonable. The only time he kind of gets angry is when he discovers that Atuk, Ringo Starr, is trying to drug and rape his partner.
And when he kidnaps her, they come in and they drag her out of the bed, kicking and screaming.
Yeah. It feels so much more archaic than 1981. I mean, this is after.
Yes.
It's just, and also, the humor is very unsophisticated. I mean, there's fart jokes and there's.
Well, I think it's a stoner movie.
Is it? I mean, it's not. I don't think it'd be even that funny if you were stoned.
I think it's like what's the Holy Grail? Those type of movies, right?
What?
I'm not saying this was good as, but I'm saying it's like that type of jokey movie.
I think it might be trying to be that, but it's definitely not that.
Yeah, definitely not that. I mean, it's not even kind of Cheech and Chong level of comedy. It's not particularly knowing. It's just kind of bumbling and not super funny. But I mean, it does have a lot of big names in it. I think for Ringo Starr, God knows why he chose this film to act in. Yeah, Shelley Long, Dennis Quaid.
That's what I was wondering, is how did this happen? Like, how did the Ringo Starr thing happen?
Who is to blame for this? Yeah.
Was it Ringo was like, I want to do a movie, I want to do it about cavemen, and then they wrote it around what he wanted? Or, like, what came first? Ringo Starr's wanting to be a caveman, or the script?
Who knows? It's weird. Very, very weird. But yeah, I mean, it's just very kind of unsophisticated for an early 80s film. I mean, this is like after, hugely sophisticated comedies like, Airplane or, even the Monty Python films have much more depth to them than this. And, definitely there is room for a smart caveman movie, as California Encino Man kind of shows us, that there is a lot of comedy to be mined from kind of prehistoric situations if it's done in a clever way. And just this wasn't clever as a film.
But I mean, if it's just a vanity project, they might have not put that much effort into it. Like Bob Dylan, and you know how much I love Bob Dylan.
Yes.
He's in a movie, and it's terrible because it's just kind of a vanity project, right? Like, it's not...
Yeah. It would be interesting to know a bit more about the background, because, Ringo Starr married Barbara Bach after meeting her on this film. So
Lana?
Lana and Atuk married in real life after meeting on this film.
That's kind of sweet.
Yeah, just you need to know if is that roofie situation based on something that happened in real life.
Oh gosh, I hope not.
Well, that was his second wife, right? And they're still married, actually, aren't they?
Oh, right. Okay.
I didn't know Ringo was still alive.
What?
Ringo is still alive, right?
Yeah.
Ringo and Paul are the alive ones.
God, you're such a millennial, Kim.
Oh, shush, I am not. I'm a geriatric millennial. That's the official term. I don't like it, but that's what it is.
Nobody wants to be geriatric.
I just say elder millennial.
I don't know why I thought Ringo was dead.
Wish fulfillment? Is that what it was?
No, I love Ringo. I mean, not this. I mean, he was fine in this movie. I like Ringo.
I mean, for me, he's, as well as being a Beatle, he's the voice of Thomas the Tank Engine. So, I mean, this feels like a real step down from that kind of, from those kind of heights.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
I did laugh at this movie, though, like the giant bug.
The mosquito.
Was it a mosquito? I thought it was a dragonfly.
Oh.
It just landed on his face, and then it just squished him. And I googled it, and there was giant dragonflies that could be that size in the Permian.
Yeah, so only 200 million years before people were around.
Yes.
But the movie is set 1 zillion years ago.
That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was funny.
I laughed when they had like the transition scenes for Nightfall, and at first it's night, and there's a dinosaur that howls like a coyote, and then in the morning the same dinosaur crows like a rooster.
And then it hoots like an owl too in another scene. Yeah, it was funny. I think like there definitely was moments, but I think it fell into that same trap of these same ones that we've been watching, where it's just the storyline isn't very good. And it doesn't move very much. And it must be this trying to not use language very much, right? So there's no dialogue and there's not much happening. And so it's just this endless parade of chaotic events pushing the plot forward.
Yeah. And with a very limited, nonsense words for a limited kind of repertoire of things, of nouns that they use.
But then they had the one English guy translate everything.
The language is actually pretty interesting in this movie because it's not totally without language like a lot of other movies are, but they have some very specific words. So, like, did you guys translate all the meanings of all the words that they use? I mean, they have the guy in the middle translate most of the words for you.
I worked out zug zug, which was quite amusing, which I think means sex.
The Wikipedia page has a relatively complete list of all the words they use. So I kind of like that because I felt like this was trying to be mostly a parody of 1 million years BC, because it basically is the same story, and it basically is boring in the same way, and that nothing really happens.
Yeah.
But 1 million years BC had like a couple of words that they used and almost like no dialogue otherwise. And so at least I was happy that this one had a relatively rich language, not compared to more recent movies like Alpha, but at least they had a very intentional language that they wrote where the characters used the words over and over, and they expected you to figure out the meanings of the words by putting in that one character who just speaks English, and he's like trying to tell everybody what the English words are, and they're just like, no, those aren't the words. These are obviously the real words.
Yeah.
I laughed when they had that scene where he was translating everything, and he says the word friend, and all the other people are like, Bobo. And he's like, no, friend. And then Ringo Starr's like, friend? No, Bobo.
There was a moment too where Ringo slipped into Scouse accent. It was kind of funny.
According to the Wikipedia page, for some of the original viewings, they handed out pamphlets to the people in the theaters with the translations of all the words so they could actually follow along. So it's not as good as a more recent movie, but I liked that they put in some effort to write at least a bit of a language for it.
I liked that there was more than just the two characters. Like, I liked the Dennis Quaid character, and like just how there was other things going on as well, aside from just trying to steal a woman. And the little jokes they put through, like when Ringo took at the beginning, before he starts, like before he gives Lana the first fruit that he gives her, the non-drugged one, he picks up a circular stone that has a stick through it, and he starts playing with it like he's so close to inventing the wheel, and then he just gets bored and puts it down.
I guess that's the other thing about this movie, is that Ringo Starr basically invents everything.
Yes.
Along the way.
Music.
So the first thing is he figures out upright posture accidentally by hugging, and then everybody they meet throughout the movie, they correct their posture first of all, and then that changes their whole outlook on life.
Yeah, and cooking.
Cooking food
better when it's cooked.
Hafting weapons. That's another of his. I think that's something he invents as well. Like, nobody thought to do that before.
Yeah.
And they discovered fire as well.
Yeah. Riding dinosaurs, that's another invention.
Yeah, riding dinosaurs.
And music, but I don't know if that was Ringo. And he was the one that discovered the drugs, too.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And it was definitely like a cannabis leaf that the drug plant had.
Cannabis, It was a cannabis plant, and it looked like poppy flowers. So I thought that they were trying to get into that. Like, that's what their suggestion was. It's like a made-up drug, but that's what it looked like.
But what was the effect of it? It just made everybody sleepy?
Looked like
I think so. Mm-hmm. And a bit kind of lethargic. Mm-hmm. Or that's the effect it had on the dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose if we want to be educational, we could talk a little bit about each one of these inventions and talk about what we know about when they actually happened. Like the use of fire, when did that actually happen?
But that's debated still. We still don't even know, right?
It's
we're
about
guessing.
a zillion years, though, isn't it? I mean, it's like...
it's maybe a zillion and a half.
It's a pre-human invention. It's before modern Homo sapiens. It's Homo erectus or possibly earlier, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's the hypothesis, is that it's Homo erectus, but...
I think the best evidence is definitely like 500,000 or 750,000, and then potentially up to like 1.5 million or 2 million. I think it was like early at the root of the genus Homo.
Really, Homo habilis.
Like Homo erectus, like the beginning of Homo erectus, because you have that shift in like gut shape, like torso shape. Homo erectus gets like the modern human torso. So I think that there's a link between the fire and cooking, and once they started using fire and cooking food, then the gut evolved to be shorter because you're eating more efficient food.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Did you guys read the book Catching Fire by Richard Wrangham?
No.
It's I think it's already maybe 15 years old. It might already be outdated, but it's his whole hypothesis is that it was cooking food that really stimulated the evolution of humans as we are now. And he was talking in the book about how he thinks it started with early with Homo erectus, and it was that surplus energy from cooking food that really was responsible for the brain expansion and all these other things.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of the expert in that question. And then a colleague of mine who works at Kubifora said that they had possible evidence of like charred ground, but whether or not that could be definitely linked as being intentional fire use or something else. I don't think they've said that yet. So Kubifora is like 2 million years. That would be Homo erectus, maybe a bit before.
Kubifora is in Africa. What country is it in?
Kenya. So, and the hominin fossils date between 2.1 and 1.3 million years. So that's Homo erectus. I mean, it would make sense in Homo erectus being the first one to leave Africa too. If you had fire to protect yourself, you'd be a lot more comfortable exploring and leaving your area, right? Like, it's pretty powerful to be able to control fire.
Because you can light your enemy's clothes on fire and then they fart big bursts of flame.
Yes, exactly.
What about music?
Music, I think the first evidence is Neanderthals, isn't it? Or is it modern humans? Archaic modern humans with the flutes, bone flutes.
There's the purported Neanderthal flute from Slovenia.
Right, yeah.
From Divya Baba. It's a cave bear bone with 3 holes in it. But Ross, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because it's hard to differentiate sometimes between deliberate kind of scales of hole placement and just accidental munching by cave bears because their canines puncture in a very similar way. So I think the Neanderthal aged bone flutes in inverted commas have been shown as likely to be kind of accidental artifacts of cave bear chewing, essentially.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't we be able to do some kind of mass spectrometry on the border of the holes to see if they
Not if it's cave bear bones being eaten by cave bears.
But if it was a human tool, like a rock tool using it, wouldn't that leave different striations around that border of the hole than a tooth?
Maybe just some electron microscopy or something.
Did I just write a grant application? I'm sure it's been done. I just haven't.
But definitely, for kind of wind instruments like flutes, kind of later modern humans definitely made flutes out of like swan wing bones and other kind of bird remains. Probably percussion instruments will obviously go back way earlier because they're much easier to make out of bones and rocks and things like that. You have lithophones, like stones that make a nice sound when you rub them or bash them. Probably go back a lot further, probably to Neanderthals or maybe even earlier. Who knows?
But then, how would we know for sure that those are being used for music, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like with bone percussion, you've got sort of things like mammoth skulls that are kind of covered in ochre in sort of geometric shapes and stuff, which look like they've been used as kind of drums. But yeah, for the stones, possibly by kind of arrangement, if they're arranged in a scale or something.
A drum circle.
Yeah, but obviously, a lot of music that's made with instruments would be made with organic remains, which don't really preserve very well, which is a big problem for our kind of fossil record. If you're making, flutes or drums out of wood or leather and bark and things like that, then that's not going to preserve very well, and you won't see it.
Yeah, it's just similar with the fire. Fire is going to damage the organic material that is burning. So unless it leaves a trace, like burnt ground or something, or
at least with fire, you have charcoal as the kind of end product, which you can look at and even date directly through radiocarbon. But artifacts are if you whittled something out of wood or out of ivory or whatever, then it's going to be a lot more difficult if it's just not there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't even need instruments to make music. You can just sing. So people could have been singing for thousands of years before they ever invented musical instruments, and we'd never have any way of telling.
Well, music, is I think every human society has music, right? And I think most people enjoy some kind of music. And we seem to have a very emotional reaction to it, a lot of people. So it seems to be an innately human cultural thing.
Yeah, I think, like Kim says, almost every society has music, or if not music, they've got Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
So.
Hey! That took me a second.
Sorry, had to be done.
I just would like to say that mine and Ross's music don't often overlap our music taste.
Nope. I think that's what sharing an office definitely showed us that. So, I mean, I like Dylan. To be said, I do like.
Yeah, I like some of your music too. Our Venn diagram of music taste, I think, in the middle is like angry pop girl music.
Yeah, probably.
And then tools, I guess rock tools would be 3.5 million years ago, probably either Homo habilis or a later Australopithecine for the earliest stone tools.
And then for hafting, like for kind of composite weapons that are spears or axes or stuff, do we have a good, I don't know, but do we have a good time frame for when they start to appear? Is it quite late, quite early?
So that's after the Acheulean, right? Josh, Acheulean doesn't have any.
I'm not great with tools, but I have a feeling that it is much later, like maybe Mysterium. Like 500,000.
Yeah, so I think we're getting into later Homo, so Neanderthals, early human.
Yeah, Neanderthals definitely had kind of complex hafted weapons with not just wood and stone, but also glues like birch, sap, glues and sinews and stuff like that. And obviously, I guess Homo sapiens had that too. But yeah, how far back? I don't know how far back it goes.
So the Acheulean tools, I think they didn't have. They were just the stone tools, like the cut.
Just Acheulean's just hand axes, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, hand axes for cutting. And it wasn't until later, the Neanderthals, modern humans, maybe Heidelbergensis, that they started to use those type of tools. In the movie, though, they went straight. We never saw any hand axes or cutting with rocks or anything. They just went straight to making spears and axes and stuff.
And slingshots as well.
And slingshots, yeah.
They have to like a scapula into a handle to use as like a tomahawk, and Ringo Starr just had a deer antler tied to a pole.
I know.
Which I guess would be an effective weapon.
For sure. Well, he uses it on what's his face?
Tonga.
Yeah, the big bad guy, and kind of gores him with it.
I don't think he's bad at all. I think Ringo's the bad guy.
Yeah, the big guy. Let's not say bad. Let's not make any value judgment.
Well, I'll value judgment on Ringo. That was bad.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the Acheulean before, like way back in episode 1, I think, about William, because they had an Acheulean hand axe on display on a shelf. So the Acheulean is like 1.8 million to, I guess it lasts for a really long time, up until like possibly like 500,000 in some places, I think.
Yeah, it started with Homo erectus.
Yeah, it's like mostly associated with Homo erectus, and it's characterized by these like teardrop-shaped hand axes, and we call them hand axes, but I don't think we even know what they were for yet, because they're sharp all the way around. It's not like you can hold them to chop with your hand, because they're sharpened on like the entire outside edge.
All right.
So I don't know, I don't do tools. None of us do tools, right? So
well,
do we have any idea what those were even really for?
When you hold it in your hand, though, it's not sharp enough that it would hurt. So I think if you would be able to cut hide and meat with it and hold it in your hand.
I think definitely some of the examples I've seen look like at the bottom the kind of
there's that bulbous
the kind of, if you imagine the pointy end is at the top, the kind of rounded end at the bottom, it looks like some of the ones I've seen, that's definitely like a kind of hand grip. They haven't even flaked away that bottom part so that you could hold it like there. But yeah, for sure. I mean, some of them are flaked all the way around and would be uncomfortable to hold. I mean, I've heard the idea that they might have even been some kind of proto-currency, that some of them were just either too big to use or made from rock types that weren't particularly useful. It seems likely that lots of societies, things start off having a practical purpose, and then they kind of evolved into becoming a currency almost.
Mm-hmm. And there's different styles too. Like some archaeologists, especially with later stone tool industries, you can start to recognize different, like even the napper and the artist to be able to recognize ones that have been made by the same person. So there are different stylistic things with it too, aesthetic things, I suppose. But also, I just always assumed that if it was sharp, that they just maybe had hide and just protected their hand with the hide, right?
There's a really famous one from England that has a fossil of a shell right in the center. So they've clearly worked it to keep that fossil like really prominent on the outside of it. And as Ross said, some of the sites in Africa have some that are just so big that there's no way you would ever be able to use them as a tool.
Yeah.
So there's definitely more to them than just actually using them as tools.
Mm-hmm.
Which in itself gives an indication of some kind of culture forming already at 2 million years old. Which then would be, if you were making fake tools for something other than using them as tools, then you're probably singing while you're doing it, right? Around the fire.
And also, things like trade networks and kind of exchange networks and things like that obviously kind of must have been there, because some of them are found like miles and miles away from where the rocks originally come from, and there's some rocks that are must have been sought after as being better for making these kind of tools than others.
Yeah, definitely.
Are we going to discuss flaws in this film, or is it not really that kind of film, do you think?
Are there any non-flaws?
I was going to suggest that we keep to the format, but this is one of the last few movies we've done, we've been like, this movie doesn't work for that format. What are the flaws? There's dinosaurs and people in the same movie. Zillion is not a real number.
Let's start right at the beginning. The very first word on screen isn't real.
What else do we got?
Humans didn't walk hunched over.
Yeah, there's no such thing as Yetis.
Well, we have to leave some mystery in the Yetis, because I want to do a lot more Bigfoot and Yeti episodes. We don't want to alienate the people who want to listen to those episodes completely.
We don't want to get rid of all our Squatcher audience.
I missed how he ended up getting frozen.
He fell in a waterfall and went down a river and ended up in a place full of ice at the end of the river somehow. And then froze.
Right. Yeah. I remember the waterfall, but I must have blinked during another one. The Yeti, though, I really liked the Yeti costume. I thought that was so fun.
Yeah, the Yeti costume was a big furry costume, but it seemed like the person in it was walking on some low stilts and then had like really long extended arms. Yeah. So it had like very orangutan-like proportions.
If they ever do a live action of the one with Susan, it should be with a
Missing
costume
Link.
like that. Missing Link, yeah.
Missing Link was a great movie, but it's an underperforming episode for us. It has fewer listens than any of our other recent episodes.
Really, but it's such a good movie.
Yeah.
And someone messaged me to suggest we should do that episode, and we had already done it, so I was like, yeah, we already did that episode.
Which episode? Okay. Which one?
Well, that's good. At least we can keep them happy.
Oh, they messaged about the Missing Link?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, we made one person happy then. Well,
yeah.
We made 4 because I enjoyed it. You guys enjoyed it.
Other issues, I noticed they had cave art in the cave of Atuk's people at the beginning, but the cave art had dinosaurs in it. Like they had obvious kind of sauropods and theropods on the cave art. And I shouldn't need to tell any listener that we don't have cave art that has dinosaurs in it.
I forgot about that, because what about all of the cave art that we do have that has dinosaurs in it? Do we want to do a debunking episode where we go through all those? Are you familiar with any of them?
No.
Like what do they call them? I'm familiar with some of the ones from South America, the stones.
Yes.
I can't mind what they're called, but they always appear in creationist websites.
Ugh.
They're called the Ica stones.
Ica stones, that's right, yes. And they're cool, but yeah, obviously they're...
How do you spell that?
ICA. Yeah, that could be fun. And look at how they start off as very much like 1 million years BC dinosaurs with the upright, tail dragging, kind of museum reconstruction, old style dinosaurs, and then over time funnily enough, they mirror the kind of scientific consensus of what dinosaurs look like, which is interesting.
Yeah.
None of them have feathers, which is also,
Yeah, they look exactly like dinosaurs out of picture books in the 1960s, and they look nothing like dinosaurs out of the picture books today.
It's the popular ones too. It's Triceratops and Apatosaurus and T-Rex.
Which obviously live at, millions of years, like tens of millions of years apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jurassic and Cretaceous dinosaurs mixed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One thing that really annoyed me was the size of the egg. So that at one point they steal an egg to eat, and it's like this. It's the size of a hot air balloon, pretty much. And then they get attacked by a pteranodon, which I'm assuming is supposed to be the creature that laid the egg. And the adult pteranodon, is about a quarter of the size of the egg that it supposedly laid. So I mean, the physics of that does not work at all.
And then they discovered cooked egg. How delicious
poached egg is. Yeah, in the caldera, the kind of hot spring. And so there's two. Well, there's a whole bunch of different kind of dinosaurs in inverted commas with these really cool stop motion animations. The first one we see is basically, it's like an iguana. So it's not a dinosaur. It has kind of classic lizard. Yeah, it's a classic lizard posture, like quite squat, arms out like a lizard would have. It doesn't have legs underneath it. The T-Rex has the kind of, like the Ica stones, it has the classic tail dragging, very upright, old style posture, with its two tiny wee arms and big googly eyes. But it's got a lot of character, and so I really like it gets away with it.
Yeah, and also the dinosaurs, the T-Rex didn't actually do anything. He was always just minding his own business, and
and then he gets stabbed and drugged and all sorts of things.
And when the old blind guy was petting him, he was really enjoying it, and he didn't get angry until he hit him.
Yeah, they've got their priorities all mixed up in this film about who's bad and who's good.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I thought that dopey-eyed iguana dinosaur kind of looked like the original iguanodon reconstructions.
That's what I thought
by Gideon Mantell.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the pictures now. It doesn't really look that much like it, but I was hoping it might be a reference to that. It's probably not.
They did think that the legs, like there was early reconstruction of the legs in a lizard posture, and with that, the horn on the nose.
But the original Mantell reconstructions of Iguanodon had the thumb spikes on the nose, whereas I don't think the dinosaur in this film had any spikes on the nose. But
it did. It had one on the nose.
Did it?
Yeah, because the pumpkin gets stuck on it. Remember?
Oh,
yeah. Here's another mistake, because the pumpkin that Ringo Starr picks up is a white pumpkin, but then when they throw it, the claymation pumpkin that lands on his nose is orange.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I also was confused as to whether that was supposed to be a carnivore or a herbivore, because they're having it act like they're scared of it, like it was a carnivore, but all it ever ate was pumpkins.
It did eat a guy in the first scene.
Oh, right, it did eat him. Yeah, so omnivore, I guess.
As we've discussed previously, the herbivores are the ones that you've got to be careful with. They're the ones that will kill you without a second thought. The buffaloes and the hippos and the elephants are going to mess you up big style, rather than leopards or lions.
And the moose around here are the ones that I'm always worried about.
Or cows. I mean, you're like infinitely more likely to be killed by a cow than a lion.
It depends on where you are.
True, but even in Africa, I think you're more likely to be killed by a cow than a lion. Definitely in Scotland.
Yes, in Canada too. So, how would we rate this movie overall?
On a scale of 1 to Encino Man?
Yeah.
I give it maybe a 2.
And a 1 is what, 10,000 BC?
Yeah.
Really, that low?
Yeah.
So hard to please us.
I mean, I know. I'm just never happy. I mean, and it gets those points for the stop motion dinosaurs, which were good. But yeah,
I laughed a few times.
The Ringo Starr character is not very sympathetic. None of the characters are particularly well fleshed out. None of the jokes are all that funny. And even the Barbara Bach character that we're supposed to be kind of fall instantly in love with, she's not Raquel Welch by any stretch of the imagination.
No. She's just trying to get with whichever man is going to be leader.
Yeah.
But when you treat women like property, they're going to want to be owned by the richest, right?
True. Yeah. I mean, it's a very pragmatic decision.
Mm-hmm.
I did like the actor that played Tonda, the main quote-unquote bad guy, the antagonist. He was played by John Matuzak, who's a former football player, American football player.
All right.
And he seems like he died of heart failure like in his late 30s, so he didn't do too much. But he had some other roles, like he was in The Goonies. What was that? That disabled character, which
Sloth.
Probably hasn't aged well, but was Sloth.
Oh my god, really?
That was him?
Oh, that's a cool fact.
Oh.
Everyone loves Sloth.
Yeah, so I thought that his acting in this was pretty good, like with such a small number of words playing a caveman. I thought that he was pretty expressive.
Yeah.
I also think he was the hero. Like Ringo Starr was clearly the bad guy, so I'd like to see this movie turned around from his perspective and have him play a more prominent role. But I thought he was great in the movie. I thought he had like sort of good
presence.
Physical. Yeah.
And he must have been a huge guy. I mean, I don't know if it says how big he was, but he was definitely, enormous.
Yeah. Well, Ringo was quite small.
Yeah, he was a football player. Oh yeah, he was 6'7", 2 meters and 1 centimeter.
Yeah, that's big.
American football?
American football, yeah.
I think I would give it higher than Ross. I'd give it a 5 at least.
Okay.
But I feel like we need to watch a movie that we like, because this last few we've just been like, oh my god. So we need to do a good movie.
The problem that we're discovering with this podcast is that there aren't a lot of good caveman movies.
And they all follow the same plot.
Yeah.
We're going to have to open it up and do some more loosely related movies like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We'll do Jurassic Park eventually.
I think we need to break out Jurassic Park soon.
Yes.
Ross, you should get somebody who's does genetics or something for Jurassic Park. Or maybe we should get a dinosaur paleontologist.
Yeah, that would be cool.
There's that guy in Edinburgh. I don't know him personally, but he wrote that really good book.
Steve Prasad.
Yes. I would love to meet him. I would fangirl. His book was so good. It was Rise of the Dinosaurs, right? It was such a good book. It was just written so easy to read.
Mm-hmm. Is that a book that actually all three of us have read at this point?
I haven't read it.
Oh, Ross, you'd like it, I think. Well, I say that, but I never know what you're going to like or not like.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. Was it on Barack Obama's Books of the Year or some?
Yeah, I think so.
Former president was raving about it, which was quite nice.
Because, I love paleontology books, but some of them get quite dry, even for someone who loves it. With all the species names and everything, you're like, yada, yada, yada. But his, I found, was quite, I think most anybody with any kind of interest in it would find it easy to read and follow. Did a really good job.
Well, do we have anything else to say about this one?
Does Ringo make any other films apart from this later on?
The Beatles had films earlier, right?
Earlier. Hard Day's Night and Help. But after this, does he do any more films, or does he move into Thomas the Tank Engine, and then that's his niche?
Well, his IMDb page has stuff pretty much consistently through his whole life, but it's mostly as himself or uncredited.
Yeah, or documentary stuff. Music videos. Yeah, it looks like Thomas the Tank Engine takes up most of his time in the 80s and 90s.
Thomas the Tank Engine is the blue one, right?
Yes. Though I'm noticing that he was in the Powerpuff Girls TV movie in 2014.
What?
Yeah, as the Fibonacci sequins. And he was in Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping. Cool.
With
Andy Samberg.
Yeah.
Andy Samberg.
Right.
It's a very funny film, but obviously we can't.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's funny.
We can't watch it because it doesn't have any gay people in it.
Andy Samberg should do a Caveman movie. That would be so good.
That would be funny.
Maybe he's a fan and he's listening right
now. I hope so.
And he's very woke too, so it wouldn't be quite as horrifying.
Definitely.
It's so sad, like you want to watch old movies and you try not to judge it based on today's ideas of morals and stuff, but it's so hard when rape is treated like funny mischief. Like same with Avenge the Nerds and stuff. It's just so hard to get past that.
Yeah, and that was terrible in any decade. I mean, it's not like
I know
people
it should have never
didn't
been
know
funny.
that it was terrible.
Yeah.
And that's not the only problematic part of this movie, too. There's also the blind character where the entire joke is that he's blind.
Yeah.
And he's, bumbling and falling into tar pits, and he's grabbing women's boobs. So yeah, there were a couple of funny parts in this movie, but overall, especially because it's the whole impetus for the plot is the attempted date rape.
And then the kidnapping.
Yeah, right. So right from the beginning, it was less problematic after that, but it started off on a bad foot.
And they could have changed that easily if they had Lana kind of not really like Tunga and kind of like Ringo Starr anyways.
Yeah.
But she very obviously was very much in love with Tunga and happy with him and didn't want to be taken away. Like, it could have been that she liked him and they were sneaking off together.
Yeah, and he just had to send Tunga to sleep.
Yeah. There.
So, I mean, that would still be, that's assault, essentially.
Yes.
But at least it's assault without a side of sexual violence.
Yes.
I actually watched a lot of this film speeded up. Like the YouTube had the option to watch it at double speed. And about kind of half an hour into it, I realized there was still an hour to go. I thought, sod this. Cranked it up to double speed and then watched the rest of it at that. And I don't think it detracted anything from the film.
Well, you did a pretty good summary, considering. But maybe that's why you didn't get any of the jokes.
Maybe.
Might have made it even better since they do that slapstick thing in quite a few scenes where they speed up the footage. When they're stealing that big egg and they have them carrying it on their shoulders, they have that footage sped up. So you're just doing what the filmmakers were doing.
Yeah, it was possibly slightly funnier just seeing them kind of Benny Hill style kind of running around all over the shop.
If you've been enjoying Screens of the Stone Age, get in touch with us. Follow us on Twitter at SOTSA_podcast and on Facebook at SOTSA podcast, or send us an email to screensofthestoneage@gmail.com. Screens of the Stone Age is supported by the Paleoanthropological Society of Canada. Find out more at pasc-scpa.ca.